Hello there. I'm Jill Jackson, the owner of Sea Spray Watercolors. And if you're new here, I just want to say welcome to my sometimes wacky, but always wonderful world of watercolors. Let's get started. You can see I already have my masking fluid on and the sky is painted in. So I will link both of those videos at the end of this one. I've mixed up a medium to dark wash of ultramarine blue mixed with viridian and just a very small touch of vermilion. Mix those together, it makes a nice tropical water color. So I'm just putting that in where the darkness would be on an actual wave. Getting that in before I do too much anything else. I have the rocks masked out, and we'll be working on those a little bit later. I'm using a number 10 round watercolor brush. It's by Flo, and I think it cost me $2. It wasn't very much at all. So you don't have to use expensive brushes or paint. Now what I'm using here is Holbein. I love Holbein very much because you can dry it in the palette, and when you go to reconstitute or refresh it, it refreshes very easily. You don't have to ruin your brushes getting the paint on. Now here what I'm doing is I'm doing a little bit of negative painting. We want to leave the white of the paper as much as possible there on the crest of the wave. So I'm putting in the shadow. Now on this painting I have also used what's called a wax resist. All it is a colorless crayon made out of wax, and when you put it on the paper, it prevents the watercolor from seeping down into the paper, so it makes highlights. And I've used a good bit of that on the paper that I'm painting on right now. In that area and around the rocks, I've used the wax resist. Now the only thing about the wax resist is you can't remove it. It's on there permanently. And so if you don't want the white of the paper in that area, you better not put it down, because there's no, the paper will not take any color after you use the wax resist. So just continuing to put down more glazes and darkening up the water at the base of the wave and around the rocks. I'm working in my Etchr sketchbook. It is a wonderful sketchbook. I love it. It's a watercolor sketchbook by the Etchr company, and this is size A5. It's an 5-inch by 8-inch size, and the watercolor paper in it is really good. I think I've tried every watercolor sketchbook on the planet and just could not find a good one, but finally Etchr came out with one. So pleased to be able to get a hold of them. So I recommend that to anybody who's just starting out. A watercolor book that size, sketchbook that size, is going to cost you about $25 to $35, somewhere in that range. It's the most expensive item in your watercolor kit. You can cheap out on the brush, you can cheap out on the paint, but the watercolor paper, you got to have the good stuff. Right here, what I'm doing is I am underpainting the rocks. And this is where you put in where the sunshine hits them, where they're a little bit mossy from being wet all the time, and also the shadows. And don't worry about these colors being a little bit on the bright side. They will be toned down. In the next layer, we'll put a dark grayish brown layer on them, and then we'll scrape some of it off with a credit card scraper, a piece of a credit card. A little shading around the bottom of the rock here. Getting some underpainting on the rock, that the largest rock of them all that the wave is hitting up against. Just suggesting a rock back behind there. To make the painting unified, you want to mirror the different colors in all of the rocks. That keeps a nice unified painting. And I try to keep the number of paints that I use too. I limit those to generally no more than 5 colors. The greenish yellow color that I used on the rocks on the sunny side of them, that's a mixture of yellow green and I believe some burnt sienna. Now there I've picked up my credit card scraper. You can see it's cut, so it's not the whole credit card, but a wide enough side of it that you can take a nice swath across the rocks. Okay, now I've put my top layer on. It's a darker color, and I'm taking my credit card scraper and I'm scraping it across the rock and removing some of the paint. You'll see me moving across to wipe off my scraper. And I'll repeat that on the other rocks. Now I'm in frame a little better, so you should be able to see what's going on. I have some white highlights on the top of the rock. I'm going to try to preserve those. I don't have any masking fluid on them, but okay, there I go. Put the dark color down, and now I'm removing some of it, and there will be paint left behind on it. Makes a very nice texture, or rock. Makes rock texture. Funny name for it. And now I'm going to work on the big rock. The very dark color that I'm working with now is a mixture of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. If you get the proportions right, it makes a beautiful, lovely dark gray. I'm using a rubber cement pickup. It's just a square piece of rubber, hardened rubber. And you can get that at any of the supply stores, the art supply stores. It's easier on my hands to take it off with rubber cement pickup than it is to, you can just rub it with your finger and it'll come up too. Make sure you get it all. You can feel whether you've gotten it all off or not by running your hand across it. Okay, now we're going to work on the spray of the wave where it crashes on where the water hits up against the wave, the rock, and creates sea spray. Now what I'm doing here is I moved my water jar in a little bit closer so you can see, but what I'm doing is I'm taking the water that's been used. It has some color to it from the washed off brushes, and I'm using that as my shadow color in the sea spray. It's not very dark, and it just adds the right amount of shading for in the water, and it's all the same colors that I've been using on my painting, the rest of the painting, So there, that's one of my little secrets. I use dirty water to make the shadows of the sea spray. When you take the masking fluid off of the whites of your paper, that white paper underneath really looks stark compared to the rest of the painting. So usually I take a very, very light washed out wash or glaze of the watercolor and go over it so that it's not so in your face white. All right, now we're going to switch gears and we're going to put some sea spray in, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Show you on a piece of paper first in dark color so you can see it. I'm mixing up a fairly strong color, and I'm putting it on my brush, and I'm running it down over my finger, and that makes a splatter pattern. I hope you can see that. So I'll be doing that same technique. Yeah, there you can see it. I'll be doing that same technique only with white gouache. This is the finished painting. This was my reference photo. It's in the book by Terry Harrison. It's called Painting Watercolor the Easy Way, Sea and Sky by Terry Harrison. And I believe I got this on Amazon, so I'll link it below if you're interested. Hey there, what do you think? Did you get any value from my video? If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and you can tell I live in the South. We mash the bell down here. We don't push the button, we mash it. So mash the little bell so you don't miss anything. And also in the comments below, I will be leaving a link to my Patreon page if you'd like to participate in that. And also links to all of my social media accounts if you'd like to stay in the loop. That's it. I'll see you in the next video.